Today's story is a powerful reminder of how relationships can take unexpected turns, especially when ego and pride take control. Sometimes emotions reach such a boiling point that holding on to love becomes nearly impossible. Our story takes us to Miryalaguda, a town in the Nalgonda district of Telangana. In a place called Moti Reddy Kunta, lived a 21-year-old girl named Amrutha Varshini Rao. She came from a wealthy and respected family. Her father was a well-known figure in the town. Amrutha began her education at Kakatiya Concept School, located near the old railway station road in Miryalaguda. For higher education, Amrutha moved to Hyderabad and enrolled in the International Institute of Fashion Designing to pursue her B.Tech. Around the same time, Pranay also shifted to Hyderabad to study engineering at the Srinidhi Institute of Science and Technology. Though both were adjusting to life in a new city, their old acquaintance soon reignited. What began as casual conversations gradually turned into a deeper emotional connection. However, from the very beginning, their families were against the relationship. Amrutha's parents had already envisioned a different future for her. They wanted her to marry someone of their choice. On the other hand, Pranay's family was also uncomfortable with the relationship. By 2017, Amrutha's father realized that his daughter wasn't willing to change her mind. As a result, he brought her back from Hyderabad and even discontinued her studies. Soon after, the family started making plans to marry her off as quickly as possible. When Amrutha heard about this, she was devastated. Toward the end of January 2018, she reached out to Pranay again. She told him that if they couldn't be together, she might be forced to make a drastic decision. Alarmed, the two began to make a plan to leave everything behind and start a new life together. On January 30th, 2018, Pranay applied for his passport. That same day, Amrutha's father was away in Hyderabad for work, and the rest of the family was occupied with their own routines. Seeing the opportunity, Amrutha quietly packed her belongings. Right on time, Pranay arrived with a car to pick her up. They left the house together and went straight to Hyderabad, where they got married at the Arya Samaj Mandir in Lakshminagar. Back home, no one had any idea where Amrutha had gone. Once her absence was noticed, her family began to panic. Her father filed a missing person report with the police. Along with that, they also accused Pranay, assuming their daughter had eloped with him. The police launched an investigation, and within a few weeks they managed to trace the whereabouts of Amrutha and Pranay. Both were brought back to Miryalaguda. At the police station, Amrutha firmly stated that she was an adult, capable of making her own choices, and had willingly married Pranay. She made it clear that she wanted to stay with him and no one else. Her father tried everything he could to persuade her otherwise. Words, emotions, even reasoning, but Amrutha stood by her decision without hesitation. Eventually, Pranay took her to his family's home, which was not very far from where Amrutha had lived. Initially, his family wasn't entirely comfortable with the situation. The sudden marriage and all the social pressures made it difficult for them to accept Amrutha right away. They even tried to send her back to her own family, hoping she would reconsider. But Amrutha was unshaken. She made it known that her place was with Pranay, and that leaving him could put her through emotional hardship she wasn't ready to face again. As days passed and they began to understand her sincerity, Pranay's parents slowly opened their hearts. Eventually, they accepted the couple and started preparing to welcome a new chapter in their family. Then came a turning point. Amrutha's family shared the news that she was 4 months pregnant. That changed everything. All resistance faded, and everyone finally accepted that Amrutha was now a part of this family, fully and permanently. On August 17, 2018, Pranay's parents organized a formal celebration to welcome the couple into their home with open arms. Friends, relatives, and neighbors gathered for the event, and the house echoed with music, smiles, and blessings for the newlyweds. It was a day filled with joy, a new beginning marked with acceptance. During this time, Amrutha began regular checkups at the hospital, with the whole family being mindful of her health. Pranay and his parents made sure she received all the care she needed. They wanted her to feel safe, cherished, and supported as she stepped into this new phase of life. September 14th, 2018. The day started off on a troubling note. Amrutha hadn't been feeling well since morning, which wasn't unusual given her pregnancy. As part of her regular checkups, she headed to the hospital that day, along with her husband Pranay and her mother-in-law Pramalatha. Their destination was Jyothi Hospital, where Amrutha had been receiving prenatal care. After finishing the checkup, the three of them were returning home. Everything seemed normal, until the unexpected happened. Out of nowhere, a man appeared directly in front of their path. Before anyone could react or understand what was happening, he rushed straight toward Pranay. In a matter of seconds, the atmosphere turned tense and chaotic. The man carried out his intention swiftly and fled the scene on his scooter without looking back. It all happened right before Amrutha and her mother-in-law's eyes. In a single horrifying moment, their world shattered. No one could have imagined something so shocking would unfold in broad daylight. The entire incident was captured by nearby CCTV cameras, and the footage quickly spread across news channels and social media, sparking public outrage. In the wake of the incident, Pranay's family didn't hesitate to point fingers. They suspected that Amrutha's father, T. Maruthi Rao, might have had a role in orchestrating the attack. A formal complaint was filed at the Miryalaguda police station. As the investigation began, police registered a case under multiple legal sections, some of which were more severe, due to the fact that Pranay belonged to a historically marginalized community. News of the incident sent shockwaves across the region. Protests erupted throughout the city, with people demanding justice. Citizens, social activists, and even political leaders voiced their support for Pranay's family. The very next day, the city came to a standstill. Shops closed, roads blocked, and public anger filled the streets. Meanwhile, Amrutha fell into deep emotional distress after witnessing the traumatic event. Her physical health also began to decline rapidly. She was soon admitted to the hospital, where doctors said her condition had become extremely critical. She was placed under close medical supervision. On the other side of the story was T. Maruthi Rao, a powerful businessman with deep roots in the real estate sector. He had started from modest beginnings, but through years of hard work and strategy, he rose to prominence, amassing a vast empire of properties. His name was tied to several plots, houses, businesses, and real estate holdings across multiple cities. However, his past wasn't spotless. There were murmurs of financial misconduct. Several fraud cases had been filed against him over the years. It was also said that he had transferred large portions of his assets under the names of trusted relatives and employees, possibly as a way to avoid legal complications in the future. From the moment Amrutha's relationship with Pranay came to light, the bond between her and her father began to fracture. While her father distanced himself, her mother, Girija Rani, continued to quietly support her, standing by her daughter through thick and thin. After the hospital incident, Amrutha slipped into unconsciousness and remained in that state for 2 days. Doctors had warned the staff and her family not to disclose any distressing information to her upon waking, fearing it might worsen her fragile condition. But when she eventually regained consciousness, the police had no choice but to inform her of what had happened. The revelation left her shaken, but Amrutha did not remain silent. Along with Pranay's family, she too raised a formal accusation against her own father. But that wasn't all. She also named her uncle, T. Sarvan Rao, as someone who may have played a role in the ordeal. Amrutha's upbringing was shaped by strict rules and restrictions. From an early age, she was taught to stay within social boundaries, especially to avoid friendships with people from different communities or economic backgrounds. But her beliefs stood in stark contrast to those expectations. She saw everyone as equal and didn't believe in the invisible walls society built around relationships. Her first encounter with Pranay happened during her school years. What started as casual interaction slowly blossomed into a deep bond. But the moment her father, T. Maruthi Rao, found out about their growing friendship, he took immediate and harsh action. His first step? He pulled Amrutha out of school. From then on, her education continued behind closed doors. She was made to study at home and even take her exams from there. T. Maruthi Rao was not an ordinary man. He held considerable power and influence. He had strong ties with major business leaders, political figures, and people in authority. So arranging for his daughter to sit exams from home was no challenge for him. Later, in a calculated move, he sent Amrutha away to Hyderabad for higher education. The intention wasn't academic. It was a way to separate her from Pranay. But fate had its own plans. In the very city where she was meant to start over, Amrutha and Pranay crossed paths once again, and this time their connection only deepened. Her father, ever watchful, continued to monitor her life from afar. He frequently asked whether she was still in contact with Pranay. Suspicion never left him. One day, Amrutha and Pranay went to see a movie at a theater in Mirialaguda. The news somehow reached her father. Without delay, he arrived at the theater, this time with his brother Sarvan Rao. Under pressure and unable to resist, Amrutha was forced to return home with them. Back at home, she faced severe punishment. She was confined within the house, isolated from other family members and stripped of her personal freedom. Her every move was watched, and she was no longer allowed to live like a normal young woman. Sometime later, a meeting was arranged at the request of Amrutha's father. Pranay's family was invited, and in front of everyone, Amrutha was sternly warned and pressured to reconsider her choices. The intensity of the confrontation left Pranay shaken. For a while, he chose to distance himself, knowing well that his modest middle-class background was no match for the power and influence Amrutha's family held. But Amrutha remained unfazed. She stood by her love and refused to let go. In fact, she made a firm decision. If Pranay didn't stand by her, she'd be forced to take an irreversible step on her own. Understanding the depth of her emotions, Pranay finally made up his mind. Together they left their respective homes and got married. Quietly, without approval, but with complete conviction. After their marriage, Amrutha moved into Pranay's family home. But back in her own household, T. Maruthi Rao was devastated by her decision. Unable to accept what had happened, he declared his brother, Sarvan Rao, as the official heir to his estate, cutting Amrutha off completely. Despite the fallout, Amrutha's family continued trying to bring her back. Her father's side repeatedly called her, asking her to reconsider, trying to convince her that she had made a mistake. But Amrutha refused to return. In her new home, she had finally found the love and respect she had longed for. Quietly, her mother, Girija Rani, kept in touch with her, and through their conversations, she eventually discovered that Amrutha was pregnant. Around this time, media reports began surfacing that T. Maruthi Rao had once approached Pranay with an unusual offer. He promised him a large sum of money, on one condition. Pranay would have to walk away from Amrutha, but Pranay declined without a second thought. Efforts were also made to sway Amrutha. She was told that if she left Pranay, things would settle over time. They even promised her a future marriage into a wealthier, more suitable family, and assured her that her rightful inheritance would be restored. But Amrutha stood her ground. No offer, no threat, and no amount of wealth could shake her resolve. She had chosen her path. She had chosen love. Amrutha stood firm in her decision. She refused to be tempted by wealth, inheritance, or promises of a more secure life. She chose to walk away from everything her father owned, his vast properties, his fortune, and his legacy, just to stay with Pranay. Tirunagari Maruthi Rao, her father, couldn't accept this. He used his influence to involve prominent politicians and senior administrative officials in a bid to change her mind. But Amrutha remained unshaken. Realizing that their lives could be in danger, Amrutha and Pranay approached the police and shared their concerns. The authorities took their plea seriously and agreed to provide necessary support. A senior officer even contacted Maruthi Rao directly, advising him to step back, reminding him that his daughter was now an adult and had the full legal right to make her own choices. As a precaution, the police recommended installing CCTV cameras around Pranay's house. This was to ensure that any unusual activity could be captured and used as evidence if needed. But what happened next would change the course of everything. A shocking incident took place. An event so sudden and severe that it completely flipped the situation. When the police questioned Maruthi Rao afterward, he denied any involvement. He insisted he had no knowledge of what had happened and claimed he wasn't even in the area at the time. At first, the police didn't find much reason to doubt him. On the morning of the incident, multiple witnesses saw him stepping out of his car. He had reportedly visited the Nalgonda District Collector's office and even held meetings with the Deputy Superintendent of Police and other officials. It didn't seem logical for someone involved in a conspiracy to be meeting high-ranking officers on the same day. However, the investigation didn't stop there. The police began analyzing call logs and location data from the past several months. And slowly, certain names started to surface. Names that would soon become central to one of the most disturbing investigations the city had seen in years. During the police investigation, the name of a prominent businessman emerged, an influential figure in the transport industry who held significant sway in Mirialaguda's political circles. As the investigation went deeper, another name surfaced, a man with a questionable past. who had been suspected in several high-profile cases before. At one stage of the inquiry, Tirunagari Rao himself admitted that he could never accept his daughter's decisions and that the entire incident had been extremely difficult for him to come to terms with. Following this, the police launched swift operations, and by the 18th of September, they had arrested a total of 7 suspects. Among the arrested were 1. Amrutha's father, Tirunagari Rao; 2. A powerful businessman who was one of the key masterminds behind the incident; 3. A man previously suspected in other serious criminal cases; 4. Tirunagari Rao's younger brother, who had an active role in the planning; 5. A driver who had facilitated the movement of the suspects; 6. 2 more associates who were directly connected to the execution of the plan. However, the person who carried out the actual act managed to flee from the scene. The police conducted multiple raids in various locations to track him down, analyzing toll plaza data and CCTV footage for leads. Eventually, the entire plan was unveiled during a police press conference. The investigation revealed that a large amount of money had been exchanged to carry out the conspiracy. While working to bring his plan to life, Tirunagari Rao contacted several influential individuals. This is how he was introduced to some professional criminals. Among them was a seasoned operative with a history of being involved in such illegal assignments. It was during June and July of 2018 that Tirunagari Rao began laying out his strategy. He attempted to target Pranay not once, but 4 separate times. The first attempt was made on the 14th of August, when Pranay had gone to pick up Amrutha from a beauty parlor. But due to poor timing, the plan had to be called off. The second attempt happened just a few days after their wedding reception, but that too failed. After 4 failed attempts, the final decision was made. On the 14th of September, Tirunagari Rao instructed his brother to sell some land and gather a large sum of money. Initially, a deal of 5 crore rupees was made, but later it was settled at 1 crore rupees. Of this amount, 15 lakh rupees were given as an advance. During the investigation, the police discovered that the money from this transaction had been distributed among several individuals, and each person received a specific amount for fulfilling their respective responsibilities. Tirunagari Rao believed that his social standing was of utmost importance. However, when his daughter chose someone from a different community as her life partner, he feared it would affect his social status. This belief led him to make the tough decision. Some reports suggest that after a video clip went viral on social media, Tirunagari Rao became even more enraged. He felt it challenged his social position and embarrassed him. Finally, on the 19th of September, during the investigation, the main accused was also arrested. The police revealed that the day before the incident, Amrutha had spoken to her mother over the phone, informing her that she was going to the hospital for a checkup. Amrutha's mother conveyed this information to Tirunagari Rao, but he did not realize that it could be part of a conspiracy. After this information spread among others, the final decision was made. Eventually, based on the police investigation, the necessary information was gathered, and all the accused were arrested. Preparing the charge sheet for this case typically takes around 90 days, but due to complications, it took 9 months to complete. The police stated that the investigation had taken a long time, which caused delays in submitting the charge sheet. A total of 102 testimonies were taken in this case, and a massive charge sheet of 1,600 pages was prepared. Finally, on the 12th of June 2019, it was presented in the Nalgonda Special SSCHD Court, and the hearings for the case began thereafter. Meanwhile, the Telangana National Committee offered Amrutha a government job, a house, and 8 lakh rupees as compensation. Additionally, 4 lakh rupees were offered for Pranay's last rites, but Amrutha and her in-laws declined the money. Their demand was clear. They only wanted justice, nothing more. In January 2019, Amrita gave birth to a son. He is currently living with Pranay's family. His in-laws have accepted him as their own son, not merely as their daughter-in-law's child. However, taking advantage of the delay in the police's charge sheet submission, the main accused were granted bail. After 7 months, on April 27, 2019, under the court's orders, Tirunagari Rao, Abdul Karim, and Shravan were released on bail. Then on March 7, 2020, while Tirunagari Rao was living a normal life after being released on bail, an astonishing incident occurred. On that day, He went to Hyderabad and rented room 306 on the third floor of a lodge. He typically stayed there and kept in contact with family and friends over the phone. That evening at 8:30 p.m. he went out for a meal. However, on the morning of March 8th, his driver knocked on the door several times but received no response. He tried calling him on the phone, but Tiranagar Rao did not answer. Eventually, the driver called Rao's wife to inform her. Other family members also began calling, but there was still no response. Realizing the situation was critical, the hotel authorities were notified, and the door was broken open. Upon opening the door, Tiranagar Rao was found motionless on the bed. Later, it was revealed that he had consumed poison in an apparent suicide. Investigations revealed that the poison was obtained from a friend's food store. The autopsy report confirmed poisoning as the cause of death, and there were no signs of any external injuries. But why did he choose this path? Tiranagar Rao was fearful that the court ruling could go against him. He had reportedly called his daughter to request that she withdraw the case. He was remorseful, but Amrita remained steadfast in her decision. In the end, to avoid punishment, he chose to take his own life. Before his death, he wrote a letter apologizing to Amrita and asking her to stay with her mother. During his last rites, Amrita went to the police station, but her relatives did not allow her to participate in the ceremony. They blamed her for causing this situation. Among the crowd of thousands, she did not even get a chance to see her father's face one last time. Amrita couldn't believe that her father could do such a thing. She thought that perhaps her brother or someone else had put him under mental pressure. However, her brother denied these accusations, stating that there was no conflict over property and that Amrita was the only one responsible for her father's death. After getting bail, Tiranagar Rao was suffering from deep despair, which became evident from his mobile chats and other activities. His behavior showed that he was consumed by guilt. Then, the trial of the case was temporarily delayed due to the COVID pandemic, which had halted court proceedings. However, the hearings resumed later. Finally, in November 2024, the High Court also granted bail to Subhash Sharma. Currently, most of the accused are out on bail, and the trial is still ongoing. Pranay had a younger brother who was studying medicine in Ukraine. He has accepted Amrita as his sister and assured her that he would always stand by her. In fact, on the day of Rakhi, he even tied a Rakhi on Amrita's wrist. Amrita is still living with Pranay's family. She says that if her mother wants to stay with her, she has no objection. But she will never set foot in her father's house again. At one point, Pranay and Amrita had dreamed of finishing their studies and starting a new life in America. But reality didn't give them that chance. Due to the circumstances, they were forced to abandon their studies and get married. Now, various organizations have come forward to support Amrita. She herself is fighting for justice for her husband's murder. Her only demand is that all the conspirators and murderers should face the harshest punishment, a brutal end, waiting for justice. This incident shows a deep family conflict and social unrest where power, pride, and tradition led to the destruction of lives. Tiranagar Rao's extreme actions created permanent scars in his family, and his daughter Amrita found refuge with her in-laws. It's not just about personal relationships, but also about social status and family honor, where competition for respect turned into a tragic disaster. Tiranagar Rao's suicide, which remains a dark mystery, proves that sometimes too much pride, a need to maintain social status, and feelings of helplessness can lead to the end of one's life. On the other hand, Amrita's struggle teaches us an important lesson. Her strength, courage, and commitment to justice helped her stand firm even in such a painful situation. Her only demand is that every killer and conspirator should be given a strict punishment so that such crimes never happen again. In the end, this story reminds us that no situation or social pressure should threaten a person's freedom and decision-making.